Hello, my name is Ridley, and this is my kitchen. Welcome, I'm happy that you're here. This is my kitchen, how I found it today, and excited to move forward with our next stop. So last time we tried the ratatouille and confipialdi. We're moving to our next location in France, which is going to be Brittany. And so in Brittany, starting around the 12th to the 14th centuries, buckwheat actually came in as a very major crop from Asia. And it was something that was really suited to the soil and climate of Brittany. And so it became a really major staple. And by the 13th, 14th century, it was kind of a cornerstone of breads and different baked goods. It was not until later in the 18th or 19th century that wheat flour came in. And so this whole dish is sort of based off of what was available at the time. Specifically, we're going to be doing Galettes Bretonnes, which is kind of fun because as I was looking into it, that refers to two very different dishes. One of them is a cookie, but the other one, which is much more traditional, is buckwheat crepes. And so we're going to be doing a traditional version of Galettes Bretonnes, a more savory crepe style that uses buckwheat as a main ingredient. And we're gonna see how that goes. Now, a couple of kind of interesting little things is, as I was looking through the recipes, I'm a little worried about this one because a lot of them were saying, it's a crepe, how hard could it be? I tried dozens of different ways and none of them worked, so this is my version. I'm gonna try and figure out a good middle ground where I'm maintaining more of the traditional flavors, more of the buckwheat, but also trying to make it more accessible for me as this is my first time and I want to have this end with a crepe. So the ingredients that we've got is we have the buckwheat flour right here. Now, in all of the recipes that I was looking at, you want about 250 grams of flour total. So what I'm doing in this one is I have got 150 grams of buckwheat flour, so more of that is going to be buckwheat than all-purpose, but I'm gonna be tempering that with a little bit of wheat flour. There's two reasons for this. The first is that buckwheat flour I'm very unfamiliar with. I've never used it before, but also everything that I was reading was saying that it's going to be a more minerally, or metallic flavor, which I'm not sure how I feel about those sentences, but once again, I haven't tried it before, so I'm gonna give it a fair shake. Now, mixed in with that, we're gonna add just a little bit of salt. In this case, it's about 1 to 2 teaspoons. And then I'm also using 700 milliliters of fluid total. I've seen a lot of them that just use water or that will just use milk. I'm doing a mixture of both, so I have got 310 milliliters of water. Hi, Mandy Man. I've got 310 milliliters of milk, and then I'm going to be doing just 1 egg in there to kind of fill in the in-between there, and also to help add a little bit of structure to it. I feel a little bit more confident with the egg in there to assist in making us some nice pancakey crepes. That is all of the ingredients that go into the crepe themselves, and it's just gonna be a mix together, make the crepe. The finished version, we're going to then be filling it with a very traditional set of toppings, which is known as la complète. And so in this case, it is going to be some ham. We have got some eggs, which I'm going to fry up and try to keep them more on the over easy side because you want that runny yolk. And then I specifically found Emmental cheese. So I was told in several different recipes that you want to look for either Emmental or Gruyere cheese. I've never used Emmental before. It's a Swiss cheese that's kind of nutty and it's a little bit more mild than Gruyere. So if you like something that's a little stronger punch or has a little more salt to it, you might want to try Gruyere instead of the Emmental, but I wanted to try something new. So those are the toppings, these are the ingredients. Let me double check everything, make sure I've got the order right. I think it's just mixed together and make a batter, but we are gonna find out and then get mixing. So let's get going. Turns out, don't need to do a lot to get ready. So we're going to add our buckwheat flour in here, a little bit of our all-purpose flour. So that's 100 grams to 150 grams for the 250 grams total. We've got a couple teaspoons of salt, and I am just going to whisk this together to make sure that we've got a nice dispersal of all the dry ingredients. And then it is just mix in the wet ingredients until you have a batter. so. Water in. Milk in. And this should be a very runny batter because once again, we're gonna wanna put this into the pan. And I haven't really done a whole lot with crepes. I've tried before with a more traditional sweet crepe and it worked out all right, but I have definitely never worked with the buckwheat here, and I don't have a crepe pan, so we're gonna do the best we can with just a carbon fiber pan behind me here. All right. Now, one thing that it did mention is after you get it all mixed together, you should see some small bubbles form, and I am seeing that right here, so far it's looking like I'm expecting it to. We're going to add that 1 egg, whisk that in, and that is a completed batter. Now, a fun thing about this is that because you're just making this batter, that's really all of the prep side of it that you need to do. Everything else that I'm using is almost entirely in the stage that I need it to be in to go on top. So the cheese is just a grated cheese. You can find a grated Gruyere and just put some over the top. The ham just came like this, so I'm keeping the slices intact. And then the egg, all we're gonna do with that is fry it up on the stove right before we put it on the crepe. So once again, I don't need to do anything with the eggs. All right. And this has got a decent texture to it. It's definitely darkened up quite a lot. All of the crepe pictures that I was seeing from this have a very dark color to them, and I'm assuming that that's the buckwheat. All right, so I don't see any more dry spots in here. Everything looks thoroughly mixed in. We're gonna give this a few minutes to hydrolyze, just giving it all the time to really soak into all of the flour in there. In that time, we're just going to relocate over to the stove because this one is already ready to cook. And this is all we need for our setup for the crepes. So this is gonna be a pretty quick recipe as far as I can tell, which I'm very excited for. Now, in order to make sure that everything is done sort of at the same time, the crepe itself will only need to cook for maybe 1 to 2 minutes from what I've seen. I'm gonna be seeing as we go. But in order to make sure that the eggs are ready on time because they take a little bit longer to cook, I'm gonna cook up 2 eggs real quick here. We're doing some fried eggs, so that's just going to be a lightly oiled pan. I'm gonna put this on a medium-low heat and let it heat up just a little bit. Then crack the egg low in the pan, close to the heat as I can, so that we don't have to worry about it breaking because you wanna make sure you keep the yolk intact. And then just cook it for a couple of minutes until it starts to get crispy around the edges. I'm gonna cover it so that the steam in there can cook the top because I don't want that runny white, but I still want the runny yolk. So, we're gonna do that with a couple of eggs right now, getting this up to temperature as we're talking. And once I've got those 2 done, I'm gonna start on the crepes so that way we can have some fried eggs ready by the time we get to the crepes needing to be filled, because I don't want them sitting in the pan burning while I'm cooking the eggs. So we're gonna go a little touch and go and see how it does. All right, egg in the pan. Gonna cover it for a couple of minutes. With this particular step, I have seen some people add a little bit of water in at this point to really increase the steam in there. I'm gonna see how this works without the water on this one, and if we need to add it on the next one, we'll keep that in mind. Ooh, okay. So I'm getting a little bit of crisping around the edge, which is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm really not familiar with doing fried eggs too much, and I've seen a lot of them where they use a whole bunch of fat or oil, like butter fat, to baste over the top of them, and I really didn't want that for this because it seems like a really kind of clean, fresh dish again. Okay, I don't have any runny whites left on top. A little bit of crisp to the egg. I think that looks really nice. So we'll get that here. That's the first one. I'm gonna do just a tiny bit spray of oil on there. And the second one goes in. And this one's already up to heat. I can tell by the sizzling sound that it was a little bit hotter than the last one that I put in. So I'm gonna keep a closer eye on it to start with and probably put the lid on a little bit earlier, especially since it is already thoroughly set that white there, and I wanna make sure that we don't end up with runny whites on top because I am not a fan of runny whites. That actually looks really good. So, fried egg number 1. I really like the look of the yolk there, and then I've got just a little bit of the browning there. I could probably go a little bit more, but it's looking good. All right, so while this one is finishing up, I am going to add just a little bit of oil into the larger pan, and I'm gonna get this heating up. Now for this one, I'm using grapeseed oil specifically because I wanted something that's really high temperature. It said that you can use either butter or oil for this one, but with the butter and a high temperature, I'm worried about that kind of browning, bitter flavor that you get from overcooking butter. So, grapeseed oil here, very, very high heat. I can get this up to temp and not have to worry as much about that influencing or negatively affecting the flavor of the finished crêpe. Fried egg number 2. A little more done on top of it there, but no runny whites, and a little bit of crisp around the edge. I think that looks really good too. All right, so let's pop this one down for now, and then we can move over to our crêpe pan. And I'm getting this one heated up, so we want this nice and hot before we put the batter in. It says that you want to lightly coat the bottom of the crêpe pan. Seeing as I don't have a crêpe pan, I'm sort of estimating here. I'm gonna be starting with a 1/3 cup, and maybe not even a full 1/3 cup, till I make sure that I've got the right size pan and the right measurement for what we're going for here. So we've got a little bit of smoking going on right here, which is perfect. That should mean it's a pretty decent temperature. Get that, swirl around the pan. And then we're going to let this sit for a couple of seconds here. It says you want to have some little bubbles showing up, which I'm seeing here. The top should start to dry, which I'm also seeing right over here, and it's sort of moving its way through, which tells me that the batter was a little thicker on the backside there. Now, the question is am I going to be able to lift this off and actually have a crêpe from it, or am I gonna have to figure out something else? There's definitely a reason why crêpe pans do not have this big lip to them. Oh. We've got some lift. The offset spatula is able to get under there. I think that maybe the pan was a little hot in here because I'm getting some release over here, and that's a really nice color, but I'm also getting some burning further in here, and my offset spatula there unfortunately cut a big chunk of my seasoning out because I wasn't able to get it flat to pull it out. I'm gonna say not a successful crêpe. So let me give a second to take a look at what I've got going on. I think I'm gonna have to re-season this pan entirely and probably not gonna be a good option for additional attempts on this particular recipe. So let me grab another pan, we'll switch this one out, and we'll see what works. So, trying stainless steel pan now. I did a test one just to see if it was even viable. It didn't turn out good, but it also at least kind of turned out. So we're gonna try with this pan, see if we can't get a couple of good crepes out of it, and we'll move from there. So this is exactly the part I was worried about, where, oh, it seems so simple, we'll just make some crepes. I don't have a crepe pan, and we're figuring out why those exist. Another difference that I made is instead of the rapeseed oil, I just did some Pam on here. I'm not entirely sure how much of it was the different surface or how much was potentially the canola oil spray, but just so you are aware. Get that on there, temp down. Bubbled up very, very quickly. Give it a couple of minutes. Once again, we're seeing some bubbles pop up, a little bit of spots as it's drying there, and then we're kind of looking for dryness across the top here. And I'm just gonna go for it on this one. So once it's started to really dry out on the top there, I'm gonna add in our ingredients. I am going to continue cooking it just on a slightly lower temperature. I've already put it down to medium, down from the medium high that it was on, and we'll see if we can't get a crepe. All right, got drying there. Gonna add a slice of ham. I'm gonna add some of that Emmental cheese. Right into the center there. We've got our fried egg from earlier. Now, in a real traditional galette breton, the center of the egg here will be visible when we fold it all together. I'm gonna do my best, but I'm much more worried about getting this out of the pan than about getting it into an envelope. Oh, okay, but we've got all right, so technically, we would want this to also be folded up into a nice little envelope, but I don't think I have enough space to effectively do that with what I've got right here. So I am gonna call this a completed first crepe, and we're gonna try on the second one to maybe get a little bit more width to it and maybe get some more folding going on. But that is, flavor-wise, all of the things in the place that they should be for us to at least be able to figure out what it tastes like. What a delight. All right. Quick spray down there. Push this back up to medium. And a little bit extra to get all the sides. And I think that I'm also making these probably a little thicker than a traditional crepe would be. If you had that pan with everything how it's supposed to be, I think you could go for a thinner sort of pancake. But we're gonna do the best we can with stainless steel and what we've got. Similar thing is happening, so we're getting that nice cooking in the center here where everything has got these little holes, a couple of little bubbles to it. This time I'm not seeing as much of a gradient between this side and that side where it was definitely thicker on one end. Making progress. It also smells very distinctly not like a traditional crepe batter that I've had before. It's got So we tried a little piece of the failed one, and it's got this evolving flavor. So it starts off very savory. I think that's a great way of describing the flavor. And then it goes into minerally, which is something I didn't know I could recognize, but after you've had a bite of buckwheat crepe, you're like, oh, minerally. And then the finish is metallic. And that's another thing where was I just sucking on a penny? I don't know, but everything seems to be working well. A little bit of ham. Let's grab our Emmental cheese. We have our one more fried egg from earlier. And this one's got the really bright yellow yolk, so I'm gonna try to get this one to be a fun, I guess, display crepe. All right, fold it over. Fold that over. Fold that over and pretend that I didn't break the yolk. That is a little closer to what I was expecting from a finished product. So the whole point of this is to hopefully have a little envelope that sort of contains all of your flavors inside, and then you can cut into the yolk into there. It's gonna dribble down into the rest of the crepe and then mix in with the melted cheese and the ham. So that's actually a pretty decent looking galette bretonne given what I know about them. I think maybe a little thick on the crepe itself, but I'm very happy with that. Joining us again, we've got our wonderful Bruce. Just making his way. Yeah. Making his way downtown. Walking fast, faces past, he's homebound.
Right.
So, we've got our first batch right here. To moderate success, but I think once again that all of the flavors that are involved should be here and should be representative, so we can give that a try.
I typically don't like eggs that aren't scrambled, but we're gonna try this in the most traditional way.
Yes.
So.
Now with this one, there's going to be a little bit of saltiness from the ham, a little bit of saltiness from the cheese, but there's no other salt in this right now. Okay. So definitely you may want a little salt and pepper. I'm not sure, but there was no seasonings involved. This is just the ingredients.
All right.
All right.
Let's go for it. Looks like a pretty good piece without the actual yolk in it first.
I'm gonna get there eventually.
That's actually really good.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't try it. Let me try it with the actual yolk.
And the flavor of the crepe is
as
important.
It's where most of the flavor comes from, I think, honestly.
And when we were trying it by itself, just the little bits, once again, we were both kind of, oh, that's what minerally tastes like.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what, but when you mix it in with these other ingredients, it's really good.
Yeah, I don't hate this. I kind of love it. Actually, I would have this for breakfast.
The yolk works incredibly well with everything else. You don't really notice as much that there's like a runny yolk in there, but the flavor is super important to what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am also super down for this, and I don't even really think it needs a whole lot of extra salt or anything.
Not really.
It's got good flavor.
It's good, as is. This is a solid breakfast.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a solid dish. You can eat it whenever you want, I'm assuming, but...
Sure, but like, I don't know. I associate eggs and ham as a breakfast thing. But I'm also a kind of person who would have breakfast for dinner. So,
Right.
like, yeah, this is awesome.
This is delicious. And some of the other things, so one of the crazy ones that I saw ingredient-wise was like scallops and asparagus and Gruyere cheese and a little bit of brandy and cognac. And it just seemed like a whole lot of things. But once again, as I'm tasting this, I'm seeing how the buckwheat crêpe really would work with a lot of different flavors.
It kind of carries this whole thing.
But by itself, I don't think I would have ever made a second one. I mean, it wasn't bad. It's just I think I would have preferred a regular, wheat sweet crepe. But with all the ingredients in there, no notes.
My only note is, like, I'm fine with the egg yolk as is, but
You'd probably still like it.
I would
more over medium.
I would probably like the egg cooked a little bit more.
Okay.
Just because that's how I prefer my eggs. But even so, this is totally fine.
Right, you're about to kill it way before I finish mine. I need to make another one of these, which there is plenty of batter for us to make another probably 5 or 6 crepes, so
Fabulous.
I may be playing around with some ingredients for a second round because this is super tasty and I am definitely hungry enough to eat another 1 or 2.
Absolutely. Maybe we try more breakfast foods in the toppings.
I have bacon.
Let's do bacon.
Bacon. All right. Well, this was fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us. Next time we're going to be visiting another area of France. I don't quite remember what the next one is. It might be Tarte Flambée. I think I said that last time, though, and it was definitely not. But in any case, we'll see you for our next stop in France. Really, really excited that we had another winner here. So far, we haven't had anything that has been in any way, shape, or form even a mild disappointment. But yeah, so we'll see you next time, and I'll probably stop in a second and give you a mini update on the second round of crepes if they turn out good, but if not, I can't wait till next time, and thank you so much for being here.
What he said.
All right, and it turns out practice does indeed make perfect with these crepes. So this is the second batch that we made. I was able to make a little envelope out of both of them. I cooked the eggs a little bit more just to see how that works with the flavor and everything, and we added bacon.